The night sky over the Korean mountains looked different. Jiho noticed it first while checking the motion cameras he had set up near the bear habitat. Strange lights hung in the darkness above, not moving like planes or satellites. They were too big, too still, and they glowed with a color he had never seen before. He grabbed his radio and called Hyun, his research partner who was working at the coastal monitoring station. "Are you seeing this?" he asked, his voice tight with confusion. "Seeing what?" Hyun replied. She stepped outside her small research building and looked up. Her breath caught in her throat. "What are those?" Before Jiho could answer, beams of light shot down from the sky. They were bright blue and seemed to pass through the trees without burning them. Where the beams touched the ground, animals simply vanished. A family of deer drinking from a stream disappeared in an instant. Birds in the trees blinked out of existence. Even insects seemed to be pulled upward into the light. "No, no, no," Jiho whispered. He ran toward the bear den, but he was too slow. The mother bear and her two cubs were caught in a beam of light. They froze in place, their bodies glowing, and then they were gone. Just gone. The forest fell silent in a way that made Jiho's skin crawl. High above the earth, Commander Thalrix watched the collection process from his ship's observation deck. His species, the Velthir, had been harvesting wildlife from primitive worlds for 300 years. They supplied the greatest zoos and research facilities in their empire. Earth was simply their next target. "Status report," Thalrix said to his collection officer. "Excellent progress, Commander. We have already collected 47,000 specimens across 6 continents. The diversity here is remarkable. This planet has an unusual variety of species." Thalrix nodded with satisfaction. His long neck swayed slightly as he moved closer to the display screens. The Velthir were tall, thin creatures with smooth gray skin and large eyes. They had evolved as peaceful grazers on their homeworld, and they saw themselves as the galaxy's caretakers. Taking animals from primitive worlds was not theft in their minds. It was preservation. "What about the dominant species?" Thalrix asked. "The humans? They are tool users with basic technology, spaceflight, nuclear power, computer systems. Nothing impressive. Our scans show they are emotional and violent by nature. They fight wars among themselves frequently." "Then they are not a concern," Thalrix said. "Continue the harvest." Across the planet, the nightmare continued. In Africa, elephants vanished from the savanna. In Australia, kangaroos disappeared mid-hop. In the Amazon, jaguars hunting in the night were pulled from the jungle. In the Arctic, polar bears were taken from the ice. The blue beams worked without pause, and the Velthir ships in orbit filled with sleeping animals held in stasis fields. Jiho drove through the mountain roads at dangerous speeds, trying to reach the research station where Hyun was waiting. His phone was exploding with messages. Other researchers around the world were reporting the same thing. Animals everywhere were vanishing. Social media was going crazy. Videos showed the blue beams, the disappearing wildlife, the silent forest left behind. When he reached Hyun's station, she was already packing equipment. Her face was pale, her hands shaking as she tried to organize data files. "It's happening everywhere," she said. "I've been getting reports from colleagues in Japan, Russia, China, everywhere. The animals are being taken, all of them." "Taken by what?" Jiho asked, though he already knew the answer was impossible to believe. "Aliens. It has to be. What else could do this?" They spent the next hour calling everyone they knew in the wildlife research community. The story was the same everywhere. Animals were disappearing in organized patterns. The lights in the sky were seen on every continent. Governments were scrambling to respond, but what could they do? How do you fight something in space? By dawn, the blue beams stopped. The strange lights in the sky began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, they rose higher into the atmosphere. Satellites tracked them, leaving Earth's orbit, heading out into deep space. The world woke up to silence. The birds were gone. The insects were gone. In zoos, the enclosures stood empty. On farms, the livestock had vanished. In cities, even the rats and pigeons were missing. Earth had been stripped of its animal life in a single night. Jiho and Hyun sat in the research station, surrounded by empty coffee cups and laptop screens, showing devastating reports. The magnitude of what had happened was hard to process. Millions of species, billions of individual animals, all taken. Why? Hyun asked quietly. Why would they do this? Jiho shook his head. He had no answer. But as he looked at the tracking data from the satellites, a cold anger began to build in his chest. Someone had stolen Earth's animals. Someone had taken them like they were just objects to collect. Within days, a global coalition formed. Scientists, military leaders, government officials, all working together to understand what had happened and what could be done about it. Jiho and Hyun were called to Seoul to join the Korean delegation. The meeting was held in a massive conference room filled with people from every country. The mood was grim. Everyone knew the truth, even if it was hard to say out loud. An alien species had visited Earth and taken their wildlife, and humanity had been powerless to stop it. "We need to consider our options," said an American general. "Can we pursue them?" "Pursue them where?" a Chinese scientist asked. "We barely have functional space stations. We've never sent a crewed mission beyond the moon. They're gone." "Then we build something," said Minho, a young engineer from the Korean space program. He stood up, his voice steady despite his nervousness at speaking to such a large group. "We have been developing experimental propulsion systems, ion drives that could theoretically reach much higher speeds than our current rockets. If we modify them, if we push them beyond their tested limits, we might be able to follow." "That's suicide," someone said. "Maybe," Minho replied, "but doing nothing is not an option. They took our animals, every elephant, every tiger, every eagle. They took them like we wouldn't care, like we wouldn't notice. Are we really going to just accept that?" The room fell silent. People looked at each other, weighing the impossible choice. Chase after an alien civilization with untested technology, or accept that Earth's wildlife was gone forever. Jiho stood up. "I'll go," he said. "If you're building a ship, I'll go. Those animals need someone who understands them, someone who can help bring them home." "I'm going too," Hyun added, standing beside him. More people stood. Yoonji, a military tactical analyst, Taejin, a special forces soldier, Doyun, a naval commander, Sujin, a doctor and biologist. One by one, volunteers stepped forward. They knew the mission was dangerous. They knew they might never come home. But they also knew that someone had to try. The decision was made. Humanity would build a ship. They would chase the aliens who had stolen their world's creatures. They would demand the return of Earth's animals. And if demands didn't work, they would take them back by force. Commander Thalrix, now days away from Earth and heading home with his valuable cargo, had no idea what was coming. He reviewed his collection with pride, already imagining the praise he would receive from the Velthir Imperial Zoological Institute. The Earth specimens were adapting well to stasis. They would survive the journey perfectly. His sensors officer approached. "Commander, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from the planet we just harvested." "What kind of readings?" "It appears the humans are building something. A spacecraft of some kind. Very crude, but the energy signature is surprisingly strong." Thalrix waved a dismissive hand. "They are welcome to try to follow us. By the time they reach space, we will be home. Noted in the log, but it is not a concern." He returned to his quarters, satisfied with a successful mission. The humans would complain perhaps, but they would eventually forget. All primitive species did. They would move on, and the Velthir Empire would continue its work. But Thalrix had made a mistake. He had judged humans by Velthir standards. He assumed they would give up when the challenge seemed impossible. He thought they would accept their loss and move forward. He didn't understand that humans were different. Humans were the species that once hunted mammoths with wooden spears. They were the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats. They were the species that split atoms and walked on their moon through pure determination. And most importantly, humans were the species that never forgot when someone took something they loved. The hunt had begun. The facility outside Seoul had been a satellite manufacturing plant just 2 weeks ago. Now it was the center of humanity's most desperate project. Workers moved around the clock, welding, coding, testing. The air smelled of metal and ozone and human sweat. Minho stood beneath the ship that would carry them into deep space. It looked wrong. Parts from different countries had been bolted together in ways that made engineers nervous. Russian engines connected to American life support, connected to Chinese navigation systems, connected to Korean propulsion. It was a monster of international cooperation, built in 30 days when it should have taken 30 years. "Will it fly?" Doyen asked, walking up beside him. The naval commander was now the ship's captain, though he had never commanded anything meant for space. "Honestly, I don't know," Minho said. He pointed at the ion drive system he had designed. "That engine is based on theories we haven't fully tested. It should give us enough speed to catch up to the alien ships. Should. But if something goes wrong out there, we won't be able to just pull over and fix it. But you think it will work? Minyo was quiet for a moment. I think we don't have a choice. So yes, it will work. It has to. Inside the facility's conference room, Yunji spread tactical maps across a large table. She had been studying every piece of data they had collected about the alien harvest. Satellite images, radar tracks, even amateur videos posted online. She was looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything that could help them. Jiho and Hyun sat across from her, reviewing biological data. They had spent the last 2 weeks talking to wildlife experts from around the world, gathering information about animal behavior, health requirements, and the ecosystems that had been destroyed. Look at this, Yunji said, pointing to a timeline she had created. The aliens took animals in a specific order. They started with large mammals, then moved to smaller creatures, then insects. It was systematic, organized. Like they were filling a shopping list, Hyun said bitterly. Exactly, which means they think of Earth's animals as products, resources to collect. They probably do this to other planets too. Jiho leaned forward. If they do this regularly, they must have facilities, places where they keep the animals, maybe even a pattern of planets they visit. That's what I'm thinking, Yunji said. If we can figure out their route, we might be able to predict where they're going, maybe even get ahead of them. The door opened and Sujin entered, carrying a stack of medical reports. She was the ship's doctor, but her real expertise was in biology and xenobiology. She had been studying everything humans knew about possible alien life, which wasn't much. I've been thinking about the stasis beams they used, Sujin said. The animals didn't die. They didn't even seem to be hurt. The beams somehow froze them in place and pulled them up without causing damage. That's incredibly advanced technology. So they're not trying to harm the animals, Hyun said. No. Which means they probably want them alive and healthy. That's good news for us. It means if we can get to them, the animals should still be okay. If we can get to them, Jiho repeated. That's a big if. Training started the next day. The crew of the Horizon's Edge, as the ship had been named, numbered 40 people. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, pilots, doctors. Most of them had never been to space. Some had never even been on an airplane. Taejin led the combat training. He was a special forces operative who had seen action in situations most people couldn't imagine. Now he was teaching researchers how to shoot, how to move in zero gravity while fighting, how to survive if things went wrong. You're scientists, he said to Jiho and Hyun during one brutal training session. You're used to observing animals, not fighting aliens. But out there you might not have a choice. If you see an enemy, you need to be able to protect yourself and the people around you. Jiho's hands hurt from gripping the practice weapon. His muscles ached from the training exercises. But he didn't complain. Every time he wanted to quit, he remembered the mother bear and her cubs disappearing in the blue light. Hyun trained just as hard. She had always been good at focusing on goals, at pushing through difficulty. She imagined finding the animals, seeing them safe, bringing them home. That thought kept her going. Yunji trained differently. She already knew how to fight. Instead, she studied the ship's systems, learning every weapon, every sensor, every way they could defend themselves or attack. She ran simulations constantly, trying to predict what would happen when they caught up to the alien fleet. Every simulation ended badly. The alien ships were bigger, more advanced, more powerful. In every scenario, the Horizon's Edge was destroyed quickly. But Yunji kept running them, kept looking for the one weakness she could exploit. Minho barely slept. He was making final adjustments to the ion drive, pushing it to output levels that made other engineers nervous. He calculated fuel requirements, speed curves, emergency protocols. The math was complicated and the stakes were absolute. One mistake and everyone would die in deep space. 3 weeks after the harvest, the Horizon's Edge was ready, or as ready as it would ever be. The crew gathered in the launch facility, saying goodbye to families they might never see again. Jiho called his parents. His mother cried. His father told him to be brave. He promised them he would try to come home, but he couldn't promise he would succeed. Hyun wrote letters to her sister and brothers, telling them how much she loved them. She sealed the letters and gave them to a friend, with instructions to deliver them only if the mission failed. Doyun stood before his crew and gave a simple speech. We are doing something that has never been done. We are going to chase an alien civilization across the stars and demand they return what they stole. We probably won't succeed. We'll probably die trying, but we're going anyway, because it's the right thing to do, because Earth's animals deserve someone to fight for them. I'm proud to serve with all of you. The launch was watched by billions of people around the world. Every news channel carried it live. Schools stopped classes. Offices went quiet. People gathered in streets and homes watching the moment humanity reached for the stars, not in peace but in anger. The countdown reached 0. The engines fired. The horizon's edge shook and roared and climbed into the sky on a pillar of fire and fury. Inside, the crew was pressed into their seats by acceleration that made it hard to breathe. Mino watched his instruments making tiny adjustments, keeping them on course. They broke through the atmosphere and the stars became visible. The Earth fell away beneath them, beautiful and wounded, missing the sounds of animals that should have been there. Ion drive engaging, Minho announced. The ship's main engines fired, pushing them faster than any human vessel had ever gone. They accelerated hard, chasing the trajectory the satellites had tracked. For 3 days, they pushed the engines at maximum. The crew worked in shifts, sleeping in cramped bunks, eating freeze-dried food, watching the stars change positions slowly. They passed the moon, left Earth's orbit behind, headed out into the deep dark between planets. On the 4th day, Yunji picked up something on the long-range sensors. "I have a signal," she said. "It's faint, but it matches the energy signature from the alien ships." Everyone on the bridge went silent. Doyen leaned forward. "How far?" 2 weeks at current speed. Maybe 10 days if we push the engines harder." Minho shook his head. "If we push much harder, the drive might fail. We need to pace ourselves." 2 weeks then, Doyen said. "Maintain current speed. Everyone prepare for contact. This is what we came for." Aboard the Velthir flagship, Commander Thalrix received a report from his sensors officer. "Commander, that human vessel is still following us. It has left its planet's orbit and is on an intercept course." Thalrix felt a flicker of surprise. "Still after 4 days?" "Yes, Commander. Their speed is actually quite impressive for such a primitive species. They are using some kind of ion propulsion system. At their current rate, they will catch us in approximately 14 days. 14 days? That's impossible. Their technology isn't that advanced. Nevertheless, the tracking is clear. They are coming after us." Thalrix considered this. It was unusual, certainly. Most species they harvested from didn't even notice what had happened until the Velthir were long gone. The few that did notice usually accepted it. They didn't have spaceflight, so what could they do? But these humans were different. They had built a ship in a month. They were chasing across the solar system. They seemed to actually care about their animals. "Interesting," Thalrix said. "Maintain surveillance on their vessel. I want to know if they continue pursuit, and prepare a communication package. If they actually catch us, we should at least talk to them before we send them home." "Should we prepare defensive measures, Commander? Against one small ship? No, they are not a threat, but they are persistent. I will give them that." The horizon's edge flew through the darkness. 2 weeks became 10 days, became 1 week. The crew fell into routines. Training, eating, sleeping, working. Always moving forward. Jiho spent his time reviewing everything they knew about animal care. He made lists of what each species would need. Space food, water, proper temperature. It was overwhelming. Even if they got the animals back, how would they care for thousands of creatures on a ship meant for 40 humans? The communication came through as a series of tones that the Horizon's Edge computer had to translate. It took several minutes of back and forth before they found a way to understand each other. Finally, a voice spoke in awkward but clear English. "Human vessel, this is Commander Thalrix of the Velthir Imperial Collection Fleet. Your presence here is unexpected. State your purpose." Doyen gestured for the communication officer to open the channel. "Commander Thalrix, this is Captain Doyen of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. You took animals from our planet. We want them back." There was a long pause. Then Thalrix spoke again, and his tone carried something that might have been amusement. "You traveled all this way to ask for animals? How curious. I'm afraid that is not possible. The specimens we collected are now property of the Velthir Empire, legally harvested under standard salvage protocols." "Salvage?" Hayun said angrily from her station. "They were living creatures, not scrap metal." Doyen held up a hand for silence. "Commander, we don't recognize your salvage laws. Those animals belong to Earth. Return them and we can all go home peacefully." "Peacefully," Thalrix repeated. "Tell me, Captain, what will you do if I refuse?" Your single small ship against my fleet? This is not a negotiation you can win through force. Yunji leaned close to Doyen and whispered, He's right. We can't beat them in a fight, but we can make it expensive for them to refuse. Doyen nodded slowly. Commander, you're correct that we can't match your military power. But we didn't come here to fight. We came here to bring our animals home. I'm asking you, one person to another. Return what you took. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Another pause. I will agree to a meeting. Face to face. Choose 3 representatives. We will meet at coordinates I will send to you. Neutral ground. You have my word that no harm will come to you during the meeting. The channel closed. Coordinates appeared on the navigation screen. It was a location in empty space between the 2 fleets. It could be a trap, Taejin said. Probably is, Doyen agreed. But we need to try talking before anything else. Eunji, Jiho, Hayun, you 3 will come with me. The rest of you stay alert. If something goes wrong, get the ship to safety. 4 hours later, a small shuttle detached from the horizon's edge and flew toward the meeting point. Jiho sat in the back, his heart pounding. He had never imagined he would be meeting aliens. He had spent his life studying bears and deer, writing papers about animal behavior. Now he was about to negotiate with an alien commander for the fate of Earth's wildlife. Hayun sat beside him, equally nervous. She had been so angry since the harvest. Angry at the aliens, angry at humanity's helplessness, angry at the universe for being so cruel. But now she felt something else too. Fear. What if they failed? What if they had come all this way for nothing? Yunji checked her sidearm, making sure it was secure but not visible. She had insisted on being armed, despite the promise of peace. Trust nothing, she had said. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Doyen piloted the shuttle himself. He had been in dangerous situations before, but never anything like this. Meeting an alien species, trying to convince them to give back what they stole. It felt both huge and small at the same time. The Velthir shuttle was already waiting at the coordinates. It was larger than the human shuttle, smoother, clearly more advanced. It made Jiho feel small. They docked and the airlocks connected. There was a hiss of pressure equalizing, and then the door opened. Commander Thalric stood on the other side, and Jiho's breath caught. The Velthir commander was tall, maybe 8 feet, with long, thin limbs and smooth gray skin. His neck was long and graceful, his head small with large, dark eyes. He wore robes that shimmered with colors that seemed to change as he moved. 2 other Velthir stood behind him, shorter but similar in appearance. They all looked at the humans with expressions that were hard to read. Captain Doyen, Thalric said, his voice coming through a translation device on his chest. Welcome. Please come inside. We have much to discuss. They moved into the Velthir shuttle. It was beautiful inside, all flowing curves and soft lights. There were no hard edges anywhere. Seats that seemed to grow from the floor adjusted to fit the humans as they sat. Thalric settled into his own seat, folding his long legs beneath him. You have traveled very far for animals. This is unusual. Most species we collect from do not notice for years. Those that do notice typically accept it. You built a ship and chased us across your solar system in less than a month. I find this fascinating. We notice, Jiho said, unable to stay quiet. Every single animal you took, we noticed. Every bear, every bird, every insect. We notice because we care. Earth's animals aren't just resources. They're our companions, our responsibility. Thalric tilted his head in a gesture that might have been curiosity. Companions? You are the dominant species. The others are simply lesser creatures. Why this emotional attachment? Because we evolved together, Hayun said. Humans didn't just appear on Earth, we grew up alongside those animals. We depend on them. They depend on us. Taking them isn't just theft. It's breaking our world. Breaking seems dramatic, one of the other Velthir said. Surely your world continues to function. Your cities still stand. Your technology still works. Yunji leaned forward. Our world is silent now. No birds singing. No insects buzzing. Our farms are empty. Our forests are dead. You didn't just take animals. You took the sound of Earth. You took the life from our planet. Thalric was quiet for a moment, studying them. I see. Your species has an unusual perspective. But I'm afraid that changes nothing. The specimens we collected are legally ours under Velthir imperial law. We have collected from hundreds of worlds over 3 centuries. We have never returned a harvest. Then start now, Doyen said. Be the first. Show the galaxy that the Velther Empire has honor, that you listen when someone asks for help. Honor, Thalrix repeated. An interesting concept. Tell me, what would you do if I simply refuse and continue on our way? Would you attack us? We would do whatever we had to do, Yunji said quietly. Thalrix stood, unfolding to his full height. Then let me show you why that would be unwise. He led them to a viewport. Outside, the human shuttle looked tiny and fragile next to the Velthyr ships. As they watched, one of the Velthyr warships activated its weapon systems. Lights appeared along its hull, bright and terrible. One of my warships could destroy your entire vessel in seconds. Thalrix said, I do not say this to threaten you. I say it so you understand the reality. You are brave to come here. You are passionate about your animals, but you cannot win this through force. Then what do you suggest? Doyen asked. I suggest you accept the loss and return home. Your animals will be well cared for. They will live in the finest zoos and research facilities in the Empire. They will be studied, preserved, valued. Is that not better than what they had on your violent, primitive world? Jiho felt rage building in his chest. Valued? You think keeping them in cages is valuing them? They belong in their natural habitats, in forests and oceans and skies, not behind glass for aliens to stare at. Natural habitats that you humans are destroying anyway, Thalrix countered. We have studied your world, your wars, your pollution, your climate change. The animals were dying because of you. We saved them. You stole them, Hayun said. Don't pretend this was mercy. You took them because you wanted them. Because you could, not because you care about them. Thalrix's expression changed, becoming harder. I have been patient because your pursuit was impressive. But my patience has limits. The harvest is complete. The specimens are secured. You cannot change this. Return to your world, humans. Accept what has happened. No, Doyen said simply. No, we didn't come all this way to accept anything. We came to bring our animals home. And we're not leaving without them. Thalrix moved closer, looming over the smaller humans. You are either very brave or very foolish. I cannot decide which. If you attack us, you will die. All of you. Is that what you want? Yunji stood, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. What we want is our animals back. What happens next is up to you. But understand this, Commander. We are human. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We don't accept injustice. You can destroy our ship, but more will come. You can kill us, but others will follow. We will never stop coming for what you took. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. The silence in the shuttle was heavy. Thalrix studied each human in turn, trying to understand them. They were so small, so weak compared to his people, but there was something in their eyes, something fierce and unrelenting. Finally he spoke. I will take your request to the Velthyr Senate. They will make the final decision. But I warn you, do not expect mercy. The Empire does not change its laws for primitive species. We're not asking for mercy, Jiho said. We're demanding justice. The meeting ended badly. The humans returned to their shuttle, frustrated and angry. They had achieved nothing. The aliens would not return the animals. Force seemed impossible. What were they supposed to do now? As they flew back to the horizon's edge, Yunji was already planning. They won't give the animals back willingly, so we take them. How? Hayun asked. You saw those warships. We can't fight them. We don't fight them head on. We be smart. We hit them where they're weak. We make them regret taking our animals. The supply convoy was 3 automated ships carrying fuel, food, and repair materials for the Velthyr fleet. They traveled slowly, their sensors barely active, expecting no threats in the empty space between star systems. The horizon's edge came at them fast and silent. Minyo had shut down everything but essential systems, making the ship almost invisible. They drifted close to the nearest supply vessel, close enough to touch. Now, Yunji said. Taejin fired a single magnetic charge. It attached to the supply ship's hull and burrowed inside, finding the main computer core. A virus that human hackers had written specifically for Velthyr systems began spreading through the ship's network. The supply vessel's lights flickered. Its engines shut down. Its communication systems went dead. Within minutes, it was drifting and helpless. Target 2, Yunji said calmly. They repeated the process with the second ship, then the third. 3 supply vessels disabled in less than 20 minutes. No shots fired, no direct combat. Just quiet sabotage. Get us out of here, Doyen ordered. The Horizon's Edge's engines roared to life and they were gone. disappearing into the darkness before the Velthir fleet could respond. On the command deck of the Velthir flagship, chaos erupted. Commander Thalric stared at the reports in disbelief. All 3 supply ships? How is that possible? The humans somehow infected them with a computer virus, his technology officer said. We can repair them, but it will take days. And we've lost the supplies they were carrying. So we continue without them. Commander, those supplies were for our journey home. Without them, we'll have to make an unscheduled stop at a refueling station. It will add weeks to our travel time. Thalrix felt his confidence shaking. The humans had struck with precision and intelligence. They had avoided direct combat and targeted exactly what would hurt most. Find them. Track their ship. I want to know where they are at all times. Yes, Commander, but they've disappeared again. Their stealth capabilities are better than we anticipated. The pattern continued over the next week. The horizon's edge would appear, strike a target, and vanish. They hit communication relays, spreading confusion through the Velthir fleet. They damaged sensor arrays, making the aliens partially blind. They sabotaged fuel deposits that were waiting along the Velthir route home. Never a direct attack. Never a fair fight. Just constant, relentless harassment. They're everywhere and nowhere, the Velthir tactical officer reported. We send ships to hunt them, they disappear. We think we know their location. They're actually somewhere else. It's like fighting shadows. Thalrix had stopped sleeping well. Every few hours, another report of sabotage. His fleet was intact, his warships undamaged, but the support systems were failing. Morale was dropping. His crew was exhausted from constant alerts. These humans, he said to his second-in-command, they fight like no species I've ever encountered. They have no honor, no formal challenge. They just persist. Aboard the horizon's edge, the mood was tense but determined. The crew worked in shifts, always ready to move, always planning the next strike. They had become ghosts haunting the Velthir fleet. Jiho and Hayun spent their time studying the data they had collected about the Velthir ships. Every scan, every image, every sensor reading. They were looking for the biocontainment systems where the animals were kept. Here, Hayun said, pointing at a schematic they had pieced together. This section of the flagship. These power readings are consistent with stasis field generators. That's where they're keeping the larger animals. How many do you think are in there? Jiho asked. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. All sleeping, all waiting to be rescued. Sujin joined them, carrying medical supplies. I've been thinking about the stasis fields. If we can access their system, I might be able to wake the animals safely, but it would take time. And we'd need to be inside the alien ship. Boarding action, Tejan said, overhearing them. Extremely dangerous. We'd be in enemy territory with no backup. We knew this wouldn't be safe when we volunteered, Jiho said. The question is, can we do it? Yunji studied the flagship schematic. Maybe, if we can get close enough. If we can bypass their security. If we can move fast enough to get in and out before they respond. A lot of ifs. Everything about this mission is a lot of ifs, Hayun reminded her. Minho was pushing the engines harder than ever, modifying them between attacks to squeeze out more speed and efficiency. The ion drive was performing beyond anything he had dreamed possible, but it couldn't last forever. Metal fatigued. Systems overheated. They were living on borrowed time. How long can we keep this up? Joyan asked him during one of their planning sessions. Honestly, maybe another month. Maybe less. Something critical is going to fail eventually. When it does, we'll be dead in space. Then we need to finish this before that happens. 2 weeks into their campaign of harassment, they got lucky. A Velthir patrol ship separated from the fleet, heading out alone to investigate a false sensor reading that Yunji had planted. It was a small ship, lightly armed, with a crew of only 5. That's our chance, Yunji said. We capture that ship, we can learn how their systems work. Maybe even get access codes for the flagship. Capture it how? Someone asked. Tejan smiled grimly. The old-fashioned way. We board it and take it by force. The operation was timed perfectly. The horizon's edge came alongside the Velthir patrol ship, matching its speed. Magnetic grapples locked the 2 vessels together. Then Tejan led a team through the airlock, wearing human spacesuits modified for combat. The Velthir crew never expected a boarding action. The concept was alien to them. They fought duels, they had formal combat, but they didn't raid ships like pirates. When armed humans came through their airlock, they froze in confusion. Surrender and you won't be harmed, Tejan said, his weapon aimed but not firing. The Velthir captain, a younger officer named Velnoth, raised his long arms in what they hoped was a gesture of surrender. "This is against all protocols of civilized warfare." "We're not civilized," Tajin replied. "We're desperate. Now you're going to give us access to your computer systems. Cooperate and you'll be released unharmed. Refuse and things get difficult." Velnoth cooperated. What choice did he have? The humans were armed, dangerous, and clearly willing to do whatever was necessary. He gave them access to his ship's systems, watched as they downloaded everything, and prayed to his gods that Commander Thalrix would rescue him. Sujin worked quickly, copying data from the Velthir computer. She found star charts, communication protocols, system specifications for the biocontainment units, and most valuable of all, the security codes for various parts of the Velthir ships. "Got it," she said. "Everything we need." They released the Velthir crew into an escape pod and watched them drift away. Then they destroyed the patrol ship's engine so it couldn't follow and disappeared back into the darkness. Commander Thalrix received Velnoth's report with growing dread. The humans had his security codes now. They knew his ship layouts. They had proven they were willing to board and capture vessels. His advantage was slipping away. "We need to stop running and start fighting," his weapons officer said. "Let them come to us, then destroy them. And if they don't come, if they just continue this harassment until we're too weak to defend ourselves." No one had a good answer. The crew of the Horizon's Edge studied the captured data for days. They learned how the Velthir stasis systems worked. They mapped out the flagship's internal layout. They identified weak points in the security systems. "We can do this," Yunji said during a planning meeting. "We can get aboard the flagship, reach the biocontainment areas, and begin releasing the animals." "And then what?" Doyen asked. "We can't transport thousands of animals on this ship. We'd need their ships to bring everyone home. So we take their ships," Yunji said simply. "Not by destroying them. By capturing them. We use their own vessels to return the animals to Earth." The plan was audacious, probably impossible, definitely insane. But it was also their best chance. They would need a distraction. Something big enough to draw the Velthir fleet's attention away from the flagship. Something that would make Commander Thalrix commit his warships to a specific location. "The refueling station," Minho said, looking at the star charts. "The one the Velthir fleet is heading toward. They need it because we destroyed their supply ships. If we threaten that station, they'll have to defend it. And while they're defending it, a small team boards the flagship," Tajin said, following the logic. Exactly. The plan took shape over the next several days. The Horizon's Edge would approach the refueling station and make a show of threatening it. The Velthir would respond with their warships, pulling them away from the flagship. Then a small team in a shuttle would approach the flagship from the opposite direction, board it, and begin releasing the animals. It required perfect timing. Perfect execution. Perfect luck. "When do we do this?" Hayun asked. Doyen looked around at his crew. They were exhausted, running on determination and desperation, but they were also ready. "Tomorrow. We do it tomorrow. Everyone rest tonight. Tomorrow we bring our animals home." That night Jiho couldn't sleep. He sat in the observation deck looking at the stars, thinking about Earth, about the forests that were silent now, about the bears he had studied, about everything they were fighting for. Hayun found. The animals began to wake. Slowly at first, then faster as Sujin worked through the systems. An elephant opened its eyes, confused and frightened. Birds fluttered in their containment areas. A tiger paced nervously in its pod. They were awake but still trapped. "Jiho, we have a problem," Hayun said. "The containment fields are still active. The animals are awake but they can't move. If we deactivate the fields, they'll be loose on the ship." "That's exactly what we want," Jiho replied. "Chaos, confusion. The Velthir won't know how to handle thousands of panicked animals running through their ship." Tajin nodded. "It's a good distraction, and it gives us time to get more animals out." "Do it," Jiho said. Sujin entered the command. The containment fields dropped. Animals poured out of their pods into the corridors of the alien ship. The elephant trumpeted in fear and anger. Wolves ran in packs, searching for escape. Bears roared. Birds flew through the passages in confused flocks. Alarms began blaring throughout the Velthir flagship. On the bridge, Commander Thalrix stared at his screens in shock. "What is happening? Why are the containment fields down?" "Intruders, Commander." "Someone is in the biocontainment section. The specimens are escaping. Escaping? How? Then understanding hit him like a physical blow. The humans. They boarded us while we were distracted. At the refueling station, the Horizon's Edge was playing a dangerous game. They fired on the station's shields, not trying to destroy it, but making enough noise to keep the Velthir warships focused. Minho pushed the engines to their limits, dodging incoming fire, staying just out of range. How much longer? Doyen asked Yunji. The boarding team has been inside for 40 minutes. We need to give them at least another hour. The engines won't last another hour at this pace. Then make them last anyway. Back on the flagship, Jiho and his team moved deeper into the ship. They were releasing animals in every section they could reach. The Velthir crew was in chaos, trying to recapture creatures they had never expected to be loose. A crew member ran from a pack of wolves. Another climbed onto equipment to escape an angry rhinoceros that had somehow gotten into the engineering section. Hayun found the section holding marine animals. Dolphins, whales, and fish were in specialized water-filled pods. These we can't release, she said. They'll die without water. Then we need to figure out how to take their pods with us, Jiho said. How? We came in a small shuttle. We can't carry whale pods, and we'll have to use their ships. We need to capture this flagship. It was an insane idea. 4 humans capturing a ship 1,000 times bigger than their shuttle. But what else could they do? Leave the marine animals behind? Leave any of the animals behind? Sujin, can you access their ship controls? Jiho asked. Maybe. Give me time. They made their way toward the bridge, moving through corridors filled with confused and angry animals. Earth's wildlife had become their unwitting allies, keeping the Velthir crew distracted and frightened. A door opened ahead of them and 3 Velthir crew members emerged. They saw the armed humans and froze. Tejan raised his weapon. Don't move. We don't want to hurt you, but we will if we have to. The Velthir raised their hands. They had never been in combat. Their species had evolved beyond violence, they believed. But these humans clearly had not. One of the Velthir spoke in broken English. Please, we are not fighters. We only collect specimens. We mean no harm. You stole our animals, Hayun said angrily. You harmed our world. Now you're going to help us fix it. They took the 3 Velthir with them, using them to navigate the ship. One was a technician who knew the systems. Under Sujin's direction, he began showing her how to access the flagship's controls. On the bridge, Commander Thalrix was trying to regain control of his ship. Half his crew was running from animals. The other half was trying to figure out how 4 humans had caused such chaos. And now reports were coming in that the humans were heading toward the bridge. Seal all passages to the command deck, he ordered. Prepare defensive positions. They cannot be allowed to take this ship. But the seals didn't work. Sujin had access to the security systems through the captured technicians' codes. Doors that should have been locked opened. Defenses that should have activated failed. The humans moved through the ship like they owned it. They reached the bridge. Tejan went first, weapon ready. Inside, a dozen Velthir crew members stood frozen in fear. Commander Thalrix stood in the center, his long frame tense with anger and confusion. This is my ship, Thalrix said. You have no authority here. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Your ship is full of our animals, Jiho replied. You have no right to them. We're taking them back. And we're taking this ship to transport them home. Impossible. You cannot operate this vessel. You don't have the crew, the knowledge, We'll figure it out, Hayun interrupted. We're humans. We're good at figuring things out. An alert chimed on the bridge displays. The Velthir warships were returning from the refueling station. They had realized the real threat was at the flagship, not the station. You failed, Thalrix said. My warships will destroy your small ship and recapture this one. Your mission is over. Doyen's voice came through on Jiho's communication device. Boarding team, we have a problem. The Velthir fleet is returning and we can't hold them off anymore. We need to break off. Negative, Jiho said. We're on the flagship bridge. We have control. Don't leave us, we don't have a choice. The engines are failing. If we stay, we die, Yunji's voice cut in. Wait, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. Multiple ships approaching. Unknown configuration. They're not Velthir. Thalrix checked his own sensors and his skin paled to an even lighter gray. Impossible. This region is supposed to be empty. 6 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Velthir fleet. They were smaller than the Velthir warships but looked deadly. Sharp angles, heavy weapons, and they moved with the confidence of experienced fighters. A communication came through on all frequencies. The voice was raspy, speaking in a language the translators struggled with. Finally, words emerged. Velthir Fleet, this is the Kryn Coalition ship Talon. We have been tracking your activities. Stand down immediately or face consequences. The Kryn, Thalrix whispered. How did they find us? One of the Kryn ships moved closer to the horizon's edge, matching its position. Another communication came through, this time directed at the human vessel. Human ship, we saw your campaign against the Velthir. Impressive for such a young species. We would like to speak with you about a mutual problem. Doyen responded carefully. This is Captain Doyen of Earth. What mutual problem? The Velthir stole from your world. They stole from our worlds decades ago. We have been waiting for someone brave enough to challenge them. It appears we have found allies. On the Velthir flagship bridge, Jiho saw hope for the first time. They weren't alone. Other species had been hurt by the Velthir. Other species wanted justice, Thalrix, Jiho said. Call your warships back. Order them to stand down. This doesn't have to end in violence, and if I refuse, then you fight us and the Kryn together. How do you think that ends? Thalrix looked around his bridge. His crew members were staring at him, waiting for orders. His ship was overrun with earth animals. 4 humans held his bridge. A Kryn fleet had appeared from nowhere. Everything had gone wrong. He had 2 choices. Fight and probably lose, or negotiate and possibly save his crew. For the first time in his long career, Commander Thalrix chose to surrender. Stand down, he ordered his fleet. All ships hold position. Do not engage. The Velthir warships stopped moving. The tension in space eased slightly, though everyone remained ready for violence. A Kryn shuttle docked with the Velthir flagship an hour later. The Kryn representative who emerged was shorter than the Velthir but broader, with scales that shimmered green and gold. Their name was Hanul, or at least that was how the translator rendered it. Hanul looked at Jiho, Hayun, Sujin, and Taejin with what might have been a smile. Humans. We have heard much about you in recent weeks. The species that chased the Velthir across their own system and harassed them like hunting animals. You have courage. We want our animals back, Jiho said simply. And you shall have them. But first we must talk about the Velthir Empire and what they have done to dozens of worlds. Over the next several hours, a strange alliance formed. The Kryn had been collecting evidence of Velthir harvesting operations for years. They had lists of stolen species, locations of collection facilities, even names of Velthir officials involved in the illegal trade. But they had lacked the will to act. After all, the animals were already gone. What could be done? Then they heard about humanity. A species that built a ship in a month and chased the thieves across space. A species that refused to accept loss. A species that fought with creativity and determination against overwhelming odds. You inspired us, Hanul said to Doyen when they met face to face. You showed us that it is possible to fight back. We want to help you, and in helping you, help ourselves. The Kryn had resources, ships, technology, knowledge of the Velthir Empire's operations. What they needed was someone to lead the fight, someone whose anger and determination could unite other wronged species. We are asking you to lead a coalition, Hanul said, not just for Earth's,